we're back, baby. Horns up, talking Texas podcast. Fisher DeSopolis, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, the Quan Cosby. Those listening on ESPN 102.7 Austin. What up? We've unfortunately but officially entered the off season for football. Before we get into anything, I got to tell you guys, we are now brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. Very exciting. Underdog Fantasy is available in 30 states. Super simple, fun fantasy app. Sign up. Use the code STRIPE, capital STRIPE, all caps. Get a bonus pick and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Really fun. Go check it out. We've had a good time over there. And it's one of the games, you're playing higher or lower on fantasy points for players, and that's going into the NFL divisional round. So sign up, use the code, get on Underdog Fantasy, play the game, win money, win big. Very exciting stuff. So from that standpoint, Q, you being there, close to the program, knowing a lot of these coaches, what from our program has to change where those instances start turning in our favor? And they have at some points this year. Back to Quinn. I always say, hey, look, if you want to look at Quinn Ewers as a quarterback, look at that adjustment he made to hit Golden in overtime against Arizona State against the defense, 4th and long, calm, cool, collected under pressure, didn't crack once with the game on the line. You want to look at Quinn Ewers and know him as a player? That's the play I'd always point to going forward. But what happens where these situations start to only go our way?
And can I just add on that? Because obviously that's one game, that's one moment. But to look at, I guess, some of our shortcomings, it would only be fair to assess our team if you looked the entire season, things that we weren't as good as some of the rest of college football, converting on third down, scoring in the red zone, special teams. Obviously, that's something we talked about a lot besides the punt returns. But, field position game with the punting and the kicking, of course, those three things in tandem with what Josh is kind of saying, but specifically,
I'll even add scoring in third quarter. So
yeah,
those
yes,
are a few things that we had. Man, I'll tell you, going to the game, it was, to your point, it was a lot closer than what the final score was. There was unfortunately a bit of a meltdown, and I wouldn't even that scoring on a one to me was massive, but bigger than that. Let's digress back to what I think is going to keep PK up a little bit at night is right before you talk about the number one defense on the planet. You go tie the game, they're getting the ball after the half, and you give up a 75-yard touchdown on a screenplay that was brilliantly called. And especially knowing our trends, which I didn't know until that game, because I've never heard of anybody doing it, was kind of a blitz on that is they have all the metrics. I trust this coaching staff on every level, but I'm really confused at that.
This is we only rushed 4, but it was a DB blitz from the left side, which is obviously
so it was like they outnumbered us. So we did that. Right. They blitz, and it was a perfect call. So kudos to them. And I think for me, I remember after that game, usually I actually was more pissed and kind of in a crazy headspace for the Arizona game than I was for this one. We were picked to lose. Now, do I know? Yes, we could have won that game. Absolutely could have won it. But I honestly, the more I saw Ohio State, and it pains me to say it, Ohio State, if you go back to the last 10 to 15, I've said this in another segment, they're actually, if you take away true national championship, because Saban owned it, Georgia had their years. Ohio State's been the most consistent school and team in the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. They win 10 games every freaking year. It could be Big 12, it could be whatever, but they recruit well. And I think this was one of the very first times I said, you know what, they're just a year ahead of us. They were more complete. Their D-line was elite. I mean, they really were that good. And Quinn played his heart out. Jay Blue, all those guys played really well. Our defense, good Lord, you take away one play, they played, in my opinion, pretty freaking lights out. And then you get to that goal line. What's the irony of it? We're like, what? How do you not do that? Dude, we literally did that to like 10 teams we had more goal line stands to a lot of people because we're getting to that point. Our guys, it's effort, it's execution, it's a lot of things that can happen. And that's what they did better. And that's they just collectively had that edge and is, in my opinion, a year ahead of what my plan is. We are next year what Ohio State was this year. Now, you think, how the hell did Michigan beat them? Oregon was a really dang good team too, with a veteran quarterback. So I just, for me, we can recap the game a million times over, but those few plays that needed to be made, the one before the half that I think, in my opinion, was the game. Because if that doesn't happen, you're potentially going into that thing with a tie ball game, and you're running the clock out, kicking a field goal. And so it affects the game at such a level. But it was fun. Longhorn Nation, I mean, they showed up in big waves. Makes sense. It's in Arlington. Despite the weather as well, our team played their freaking butts off. We actually scored in the third quarter, made a change at kicker. There's a lot of things that happened really good. And sadly, the last 3-minute meltdown, it just takes so much away from what was a hell of a game, despite the mistake before halftime. So it was a lot of fun, man. It was cool to see the guys out there competing. It was a big moment. Bond, I know he's leaving, but drop first down was, you can just tell that Ohio State, as crazy as it is that they weren't in the playoffs last year, they just seem ready for the moment, in my opinion, just a little bit more than our guys on the field.
Yeah, well, I mean, they seem ready for the moment from game one, game two. We still looked a little suspect in the first two games, so it's not like this is a surprise to anyone in the nation. I honestly feel like, look, it was close all game. We played our butts off. I was even talking to someone who went to Ohio State who was like, man, you guys played us closer than we've seen anyone all year, despite what the score says. I am not as mad as I thought I would be, honestly. It definitely hurts, but for some reason, it's just like, it kind of felt like last year where we were like, okay, you know what? Like, we weren't right. We weren't just there yet, and I think similar to this season, there's one team maybe that takes us out, and it's them. Like, if we get another crack at Georgia, we're beating their butt for sure. Right. But I think that Ohio State might have been the only team left in college football that could have actually taken us out. And, we went toe to toe with them for, the whole entire game, despite the last 3 minutes. So I'm not as hurt as I thought I would be, because I'm super hopeful for next season. Yes, it hurts to waste that defense, because that's the best defense that I've seen since being a Texas Longhorn. But we already mentioned there's a lot of guys returning, especially our freshman of the year, Colin Simmons, who's going to have a monster sophomore season, especially Anthony Hill is going to have a monster season as a junior, who might be a top 5 NFL draft pick. I mean, there are guys that are ready to earn some money here.
Yeah. The way that you kind of broke it down.
Also, sorry, Trey Moore is also considering staying, which is a huge thing.
That would be massive.
That would be really, really big for us. The way that you broke it down, Quan, makes me think almost like in a basketball context, like we're down 15 and we kept going on a run, but when it would get to 7 points, they always had an answer to get it back to 10, basically. Right. We score at the end of the first half. They score right back. They sweep the rug right from under us after we got the momentum. We get that interception. Their defense 3 and out on us, right? Like, that was a huge moment in the game. It's the first turnover. Our defense makes a play. Will Howard finally makes a mistake trying to pick apart the zone, although he did make a couple more mistakes earlier. We just didn't capitalize, I felt. But we finally turn them over, and then we go 3 and out, right? And they had an answer for us. We scored that crazy, crazy touchdown to tie it. And, off of Quinn makes that ridiculous pitch to his left when he's about to fall on the ground. And then he throws another little lollipop to Jaden Blue for a touchdown. And then what do? They go on a 7-minute drive and just take the air out of the stadium right after that. So they just always had an answer. And at that point, you just have to give them their props, because they're a phenomenal football team. And I have no doubt, we're recording this obviously before the national championship, Notre Dame runs a lot of man. And if they run man against this Ohio State football team, they're going to get torched. Like, it's going to be really bad. I thought we had an excellent defensive game plan. They made plays, though, right? And they have 2 stud running backs. The one thing I didn't mention, I was talking about third down conversion, inability to score in the red zone, running the football too. But I give us some leeway and some credence there, because we didn't have CJ Baxter this entire year. Wisner didn't think he was going to be getting 16 to 20 carries every single game coming into the season. That wasn't the game plan. That's what it turned into. And obviously Jaden Blue supported there too. We lose Christian Clark. That's a guy we were texting, all 4 of us, the other day. Christian Clark's a guy that can get a lot of opportunity next year too. So I'm excited about what our running backs are going to look like, that stable of guys, because they're going to be supporting Arch Manning. And if we run a little read option with him, a little, there's a lot that opens up our playbook. So
I actually want to say something about that too, because we're talking about the play at the one, we're talking about the pitch, and now there's speculation. I think I got 3 texts today. Was Arch Manning hurt? Truth be told, fans, this is what I do know. Sark is a noble enough person. He's not going to come say it because he's screwed no matter what. 1, if he say it, you come off as an excuse. 2, if you don't, who knows, right?
Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah, you're damned if you do, damned if you do. We lost the game. It's not going to change anything. But what I do know is I believe in Sark, and whether it's confirmed or not, that part of it I wouldn't question in that moment. I'm just saying it. So he did what he can. He's explained why he made that play. He probably is regretting it, but again, going back to them being a year ahead of us, that DB just made a hell of a play. I'm annoyed by it. And guess what? Weiser made a miss, but they pursued and they took care of business.
And not to mention,
I still probably would have ran it up the middle.
Yeah.
Same.
But the truth of the matter is,
and
they got freaking stabbed. Listen, both can be true. I probably would have did something different, but I can also understand why he made the decision that he did, and the arch craziness of putting him in. If there is a reason he couldn't, I trust that as well.
Yeah.
So it's just really at the end of the day, we could have done that. We could have went into overtime and still lost. So there's a million things. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, woulda. Because we weren't taking a lead then. We were just trying to tie.
Right.
And then the other play happened, and they made that freaking crazy, insane timely play. And I mean, we haven't had a fumble for touchdown in I think years, let alone it all happening. So it was one of those things. You just got to tip your hat, and I think that's why I wasn't mad either. I was like, honestly, and a little selfishly, and I actually. It takes me into a conversation about the Anthony Hills of the world. Anthony Hill doesn't come out a lot. And I think by the end of the season, and I think that's something Sark and their crew is going to address, we love the new format. But I'm going to tell you, these college kids aren't used to it. You got some freshmen out there who may or may not go.
How could you be? How could you be?
Dude, because this is the thing. They're like, and this is where I'll take my own words. I'm like, hey, every other league does it. You know what? You're right. Texas high school football, they do it. They play 16 games. But you know what they're not doing? It's flying to Atlanta, flying to Pasadena, flying to Miami. That's a whole different monster than me practicing at home and driving the game day to the game. And so
March Madness is grueling, but 4 rounds of NBA playoffs is more. It's more.
No, you're exactly right. That's what I'm saying. March Madness, the final few games are all at the same place. And so it's just little things like that I think will.
Q, you're muted. You're good.
Sark is to year 4, and it still is a part of that process. We are trending in every ounce of a good direction. We go into the SEC. I don't care what those haters say. We were in the championship game. A&M still haven't done it. A lot of schools haven't. And so I like where we are, and I think we're so freaking close. And everybody's going to say it's man.
Hold up, you muted again, Q. I think you hit the button.
No. Did you touch the thing on the mic maybe?
Yeah, is it good now?
Yeah,
you're good now.
No, I'm gonna tell you what it is. I keep seeing this thing that says you're unplugged. So damn technology. But no, man, I just like I was saying, I think we're super close. I'm super pumped where we are. I think they were, like y'all said, that was that one team that matched our roster, but had experience. They were a little bit more ready than we were per how they were set up. And I think now that we have 4 years of Sark's recruiting class, we're about to be exactly where they are now. Day's been there longer. He inherited some pretty freaking good thing, where Sark came and had to clean up an absolute mess. And so I think where we are now, I love it. In hearing some of the conversation and the moves being considered in the offseason, I love them. And I think Longhorn Nation need to appreciate this season, take a little bit of woosah, and let's cheer for our guys versus being so critical and crazy. I get it. We're happy. We're excited. But we're once again, we're probably going to end up number 3 in the country.
I mean, look,
That's
If you're
back to back. I mean, Final Four. I mean, that's and then in a position to be exactly in that moment again next year. So I'm fired up for what's to come.
If you're looking at as a Longhorn fan, just think about it. Number 3 team in the country to end the season, right? Second semifinal appearance, the Outland winner, the Thorpe winner, the Freshman of the Year winner. You know, record-breaking number of guys probably getting drafted this year. Like, besides winning it all, this is as good as it gets.
100%, it's as good as it gets. And you know what? Everyone's crapping on how easy our schedule was. Like, we come to the SEC. We get to the SEC. You have the easiest schedule. Outside, we get to play Ohio State and get our revenge early in the season. But outside of that game, our schedule is kind of the same. So, like, you want to say it's easy? Good. We're back in it next year, and we get A&M at home. We'll close out the show, guys, since there's no score predictions, unfortunately, for this one. So we don't get to do that this week. Let's go around the horn. Toss, we'll start with you, my friend, then Quan, then Nick, and I'll close out. Give a letter grade for our season. Give a letter grade.
Can I take that to one more? And I know we do have to roll, but a letter grade and one thing that needs to be addressed for the offseason for us to get over that.
Oh, okay. Toss, so your letter grade from A+ to F. I don't think it's going to be an F.
Well,
including plus and minus.
I mean, to me, I think it has to be. I'm between an A- and an A right now, and I think I'm gonna bump us up. I'm giving us an A. Look, like Nick said, it's incredibly difficult to get all the way there. We have a national championship here where one of these coaches is going to win who's never won before. This is a playoff format that no one had dealt with, and we got to the semifinal back-to-back years. We already talked about, the SEC championship, fantastic. Like, we met so many expectations this year, and ultimately we're kind of exactly where I thought we were going to be going into the season. Like, I thought we were one of the 4 best teams. I wasn't sure that we were outright the number 1 team, and that's kind of where we ended up. Did I think it was going to be Notre Dame and Penn State in the mix? No, I thought it was Oregon. I thought it was Ohio State, us, and Georgia, depending on what they looked like. And maybe, I think at the beginning of the season, maybe I liked Alabama, but who knows? And so we are who we thought we were this year, for me at least. But I'm damn proud of our guys. One of the things that we can improve on, I think the third down conversions will take care of itself. I'll just take the easy one since I'm going first. I want north of 75% field goal percentage next year from our team. I just want us to I want to not sweat those moments, because I felt like Zane Gonzalez, I know he has OCD, but he was fixing his hair before he hit that doinker to win the game for the Commanders. I felt like that every single time we punted or kicked a field goal this entire season. I'd love to not have that next year. I'd love for that not to be the case, because I trust everything else that our coaches put together on the field. I really do. It's just make that a little bit easier for my own life, please. Thanks.
No doubt. I think I'm going to give us an A-. I was between A- and A as well, for the sole reason that we got beat by Georgia twice in games that we were favored in, once at home and once in the SEC championship game. We should have won the SEC championship game. If we had a competent kicker, we are SEC champions, and we get a first round bye. And who knows, maybe we don't actually have to play Ohio State until we're in the Natty this week. That's a big blemish. It changes a whole lot. And who knows, maybe Ohio State doesn't play the same way they did because they had another game of playing and their guys, I don't know. So many what ifs. But that's the only reason why I give it an A-. I think the one thing that I'm looking for, and this is an easy one to improve because we're getting guys healthy. Let's reestablish the run game, because yes, we had amazing games here and there against Clemson, but that defense was doo-doo. Trey Wisner, what a revelation he's been, but he's not an every down back. He's a great scat back. He's a guy that you can change at the pace, great out of receiving out of the backfield. But let's get Baxter in there. Let's retake that RBU mentality of the Brooks, the Bijans, the Deontay Foremans. Let's get a guy in there in the mix who could potentially vie for the best running back in the nation, and come back hungry. So that's an easy one, though, because, he's healthy. And A lot of that's going to come down the O-line. A lot of it's going to come down to Sark, making the right play calls. That's another thing too that I think we could probably work on is Sark's ability to manage games, and not have his finger on every single button here and there. Delegate some of those tasks to some of his coaches.
Man, don't bring that up. You're going to open a whole worm, a book of worms. Because I think a lot about being the head coach and offensive coordinator at the University of Texas, and it's been a back-to-back playoff. I mean, it's semis, so it's an interesting little deal. I'm going to give us. That's all I'm going to say. It's very interesting. Is that though gets over the hump? That's not my point though. But you did bring that to my brain. I give us an A, and I'm gonna tell you why. Because I'm with you. We got beat by Georgia twice. We didn't accomplish certain goals, which would lean more towards A minus. But we had we have two of the top players in the country. We haven't had that in a while nationally with Banks and Jade. And the reason I bump it from an A minus to an A because of the affirmation for a guy making that leap, making that choice, and coming back having a phenomenal season. Draft stock through the roof because then you face number one and he had one catch. I mean, and freshmen or not, I don't care. They act like that guy was unstoppable, and they act like he was chasing Jefferson. And I'm like, nah, man. And quite frankly, he looked like it in a lot of ways. So
he might be eventually.
Oh, absolutely. His number's gonna surpass probably everyone's if he gets another quarterback, because that's the situation now. But really, that's why I bump it back up, because you got to give them their due. I'm so happy for those guys. Those are individual awards, but they mean a lot for a team and a school. And so getting to another semis, I still think the process is going on, but we're ahead of it. Something to improve. We have to figure the third quarter out. I know we did score finally in that situation, but there's so many games. Sark, unbelievable, and game planning and all of the coaches, and we get a lead. But the third quarter is the third quarter is almost as uncomfortable as our previous kicker lining up for a field goal. I mean, I truly go in there and I go, are we going to score in the third quarter? Our offense is too explosive to have that question. So what needs to be the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over again. I was joking with my buddies and I was like, all right, forget going in at halftime. We need to just stay out there, stretch, watch the band. If you need to use the restroom, go inside. But we have to do something different at halftime because our third quarters were very unsuccessful collectively. And I think from an offensive standpoint, I think the defense still tried to hold their own. But a lot of those games that got stressful, I mean, the value when you have a long season in putting, your foot down and finishing a team potentially in the third quarter, there's a lot of games where I was on the sideline chilling, watching our guys play, having fun. And that's unwritten time and rest and you're not on. So those little things like that, when you blow someone out, which Ohio State did, those little moments in the grand scheme of thing can help you overall from a team standpoint. So mine certainly trying to figure out what's happening in the third quarter and getting better.
Remember when probably like first 3 weeks of the season, all we were doing was looking at the box score, seeing how many different players played in the game, and we were like, look how many guys took snaps. And then the next 6-7 weeks, we were like, we stopped talking about that because finishing the job. And I think for us, oftentimes we were such a good team and our defense was so good that we could finish the job in the third quarter, like you're talking about, Quan, and we didn't. Right? It was
those close games. Yeah, they were gassed.
Like it shouldn't have been a close game, and everybody knows it. That watches.
Arizona State shouldn't have been a close game.
Right. So it's
there's so many close games that we had that just takes a toll on your body. But if we had finished them like we could have, we're not playing. Makuba's not playing 90-some plays.
Yeah.
And so it's that third quarter situation. I think it's a big deal, and hopefully that's addressed this offseason.
Joshua?
Hello. I obviously always agree with all you guys, as probably should most of the time, because I feel like we've developed at points. We do have disagreements and discussion in that capacity, but we've all kind of almost in some capacity have like a hive brain, and we feel the exact same way about the team because we talk about it so much. I'm actually, against the grain of what I typically go with. I'm going to be a bit harsher on my grade than y'all. I think, Quan, you brought up a lot of individual guys, and I think a lot of individual players had A and A+ seasons. That I think I want to lead off with. A lot of individuals had A and A+ season. For me, as a team, as a whole, for like the on the play field, not including the offseason of the guys we're sending to the draft, I'm giving it a B+. A+ is when we win the Natty for me. A is get there. A- where we got to with the SEC championship win. We didn't win our conference. We didn't make the Natty. We didn't go to we didn't even win the Natty. Let them go. So I'm giving us a B+ on the highest level of a B. It's an 89. It's right on the cusp of A- for me. It's as high of a B+ as you can get. But for me, it's still a B+ because there is still tons of room to go and still tons of stuff we didn't accomplish as a team this year that we should be able to hopefully accomplish next year. Something I want to address in the offseason to hopefully improve into next year, similar to your third quarter woes, Q, is my red zone woes. And when we get into that 20-yard line, I'll go back to the Georgia game. I'm sitting next to Nick, and there were a couple of plays where it just got too cute and too overthought. And I remember growing up, I'd write an essay and I'd think it was amazing. I use all these big words and this flowy language and make it poetic and sound all great. And I'd shoot it to my mom, like, hey, can you read this over and tell me what you think? And she'd be like, this is garbage. I'm like, what do you mean? I used all these great analogies. And she goes, KISS. I go, what? She goes, keep it simple, stupid. You know what you're talking about, but just dumb it down. You don't need to do all this. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, and you need to use all these spices. Sometimes a little salt, pepper, lemon, and olive oil is going to get the job done. And I feel like Sark is such a great play caller, and he's so innovative. He just overthinks and tries to do too much when he can do less and get the same result as what he wants. So when we get into that 20-yard line, that 10-yard line, that 5-yard line, keep it simple. If you're desperate and things aren't working at that point, then you try something crazy. But when you're there, no need for trick plays, no need to try to think outside the box. Play the game of football and do the stuff that gets it done typically. Like running it in, we talked about the tush push earlier in the show. It's not sexy. No one likes it. But guess what? It works every time, and that's why they do it. Running up the gut, if it didn't work, people would stop running that play. Like, there are things that people do. So I would like us to stop getting so cute when we get into the red zone and keep it simple.
Speaking of Sam Ehlinger, I think someone said it earlier. I mean, his scoring percentage in the red zone was stupid high. And they just kept it simple. They use his legs, they use tight ends, and they got it done.
I think everything that we're asking for from a personnel standpoint, where we didn't necessarily have some of those options this entire year because of the Baxter injury, because Quinn Ewers is not a great runner of the football from the quarterback position, I think things change next year when we have Arch, when we have Baxter. And I also think it hopefully addresses your issues, Quan, because then in the third quarter, we can do what Ohio State did to us with that 7-minute drive. And then if my thing gets fixed, then we're a perfect team. Oh, congrats. Boom. There we go.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm having like the vibe of like the end of the movie Friday Night Lights when they're taking all the names off the board and they're replacing the depth chart and Billy Bob is going. I'm like having these flashes in my head. But great season, obviously. We'll get into the offseason with everybody. Shout out to Underdog Fantasy, our new sponsor. We're very excited to have them. Again, code STRIPE, Stripe, all caps. Go to Underdog Fantasy, win money, get a bonus pick with our code. Higher, lower, easy, fun stuff for fantasy football this weekend and the wild card weekend. Excited about the sponsor, excited about the offseason, and keep cooking with you guys. On ESPN Austin 102.7, Fisher, Tosopoulos, DJ, Nikki, Snacks, Kreider, and of course, number 6, the Quan Cosby. Get your horns up. We'll see you guys later. We'll see you in no time.